your post address into 450 million people, then you can virtually actually have all of them having an address. So we need to change the way we do things, and things like M-Post to me is what's the technology that is of the future.
Dan, you sound very optimistic, and you're very passionate about the culture of letter writing. Yeah. But are you fighting or canoeing against the tide? Not
really. There are certain things that we must maintain. I think it would be pathetic for the world to lose that handwriting thing. That's the origin of every communication that we have. And I think we need to keep it and save it as a culture. So to me, I would not like to see it dying, irrespective of whether people can type, irrespective of whatever. I think it's something that is part of the humanity that we need to restore. And we encourage that through the national, through UPU, we have a national letter writing competitions, which we award the students who do well. So to me, it's something we should not lose. The handwriting, it's something. Forget about the letter writing. The handwriting is something we need to maintain. It's a culture. It's where the world started. It's what started the whole communication idea. Even before we become high-tech and all those things, that is our beginning. In every situation, a good idea must give way to a better idea, and a better idea must always give in to the best idea. Correct. Letter writing was a beautiful and a good idea. But now, in the face of technology or technological advancement, whereby you can get your messages instantly, you can receive your emails from the comfort of your bed, and you can even send emojis. Correct. Which has a sentimental value. Correct. Do you still see letters being with us in the next 1 century? Yeah. Yeah. They could be in different forms, but there will be letters. Because that communication, like I said earlier, should not die. However, you cannot stop change. And it's how we accommodate and reserve change. To me, the technology coming from changing from mails to emails and all those, what it does is just makes communication faster. You know, instead of you waiting for a letter to take 2-3 days to reach you, it's instant. So communication is becoming much, much faster. What does it mean? It actually means it's fastening trade. So, which takes you now to the next stage of communication. Why are people communicating? It's information, period. So now I can tell you much faster that you've got your package in the post office. So we are moving now from just letter writing to faster communication, because now we are moving into a period of e-commerce. And facilitating e-commerce it comes with the technology of fast communication. So we can't stop the changes that the world is going to have. We can only accommodate and use that technology to make the world, to make the postal convenient, to fit into the new ways of doing things. If you look at the last 10 years, in 2013, I mean in 2011, according to Communications Authority of Kenya, 23 million letters were sent in 2011, against about 10 million letters that were sent, not 10, but 15, were they 15 in 2020? Against 20 million, yeah. About 15 million that were sent, in 2015, in 2020. Yeah. Do you still see, if this trend persists, where do you think the culture of letter writing will be by the year 2030? Letter writing will definitely decline, especially personal letter writing, because now people can communicate one-on-one. But there'll still be corporate communication that will still be there. There'll still be institution communication that will still be there. But worldwide, letter writing is a declining thing. So, yeah, it will keep on declining, but I don't see it dying in the next many years because there are certain people, there are certain areas of the world where it's actually more ingrained than maybe in the part of Africa. If you go to certain parts of Europe, some areas in China, there's traditions of letter writing. There's those emotions that it carries. So maybe the new generation, the younger generation, unless we entice them or teach them the importance of, letter writing, handwriting, and all those things, then we'll kill it faster if you don't encourage them through schools and through other institutions. If we don't encourage them, then we'll actually be accelerating it.
From Royal Mail to United States Postal Services to Dutch Mail, I mean, there is a clear understanding that indeed the number of letters sent will keep on declining as time goes by. And a lot of these institutions are now coming up with new innovations, in a bid to remain afloat. What are you doing to ensure that you march into the future confidently and you remain afloat?
What was the role of the post office in 1948, for instance? By the time the UN was making a human right for people to, to have communication, what was that? Post office then was the only a means of communication. And then we came into telcos and all those things. Your phone became mobile and all that thing. So it's the question would be, what will be the role of the post office in the future? Then we have to ask ourselves, who owns the post office? Post office is owned by the government. So the other question would be, what does the government, as the owner of the post office, want to use the post office for its own services? So it emerges then that the role of the post office as a communicator becomes more important to the government to execute its own government services. So we should be able to have, for instance, what happens in GPO, in Huduma services, government services, for instance, should be replicated to every single post office in Kenya, so that every Kenyan has equity and have equal services through the post office. To me, that's the way we need to look at the new role. Then we need to ask ourselves, since technology of the fixed boxes is 100 years old, and basically it won't be there in the future, what is that box going to be? So the emergence would be, there'll be timeshare boxes. Like now we are introducing timeshare boxes, where you don't have to come, if you are, say in Rhodesia, for instance, you can book your time in that particular box, and your package is delivered in that particular box. It could be on your way home. So it changes the whole way we look at a box, and we just stop saying it is that box at GPO on that wall. Then it becomes more. Then we do things like M-Post. M-Post is a Kenyan technology. It's an amazing thing, where now your phone becomes your address. If you move to Mombasa, it follows you. If you move to Kisumu, you still have the address. To me, it's making the post office needs to be part of the changing, so that it's convenient and it plays a role in the future.
When you look at your revenue, almost 70% of it is generated from letters. How do you ensure that you de-risk your business by ensuring that you diversify into other businesses in a bid to remain economically and business-wise friendly?
I think it's investing. The way out is to invest and to diversify and know that that particular 70% will be 65, or it will be 60 next year. So how do you make sure that you have replaced it with maybe 20%, so that by the time this graph is going down, you've got a graph going up. The graph going up will be basically on e-commerce, on payment systems, and that's why right now we are engaging in developing the national payment gateway. We are developing agency banking, so that we get partnerships, and then we become more or less an aggregator of courier business. So if we play that role, then we'll float.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's a serious influx of courier services, and this market is highly unregulated and sometimes uncoordinated. How is this posing a risk?
Competition is healthy. Competition is healthy, and.
But do you think the ground is even?
I think it is. I think it is. It's how quickly you move. As long as the doors are open, you can't blame the matatus for moving faster. The question is, how do you play your role in that open market? You must survive. So we can't still wear blinkers and start keep on saying we are government in an institution that is commercial, and say no, we are not regulated. It's regulated. No. If it's not regulated, then we play and we start thinking commercially. There's no other way. If we don't think commercial, we die. That's it. But we can't start saying no. We should be protected. Protectionism creates inefficiencies. So we can't let Kenyans suffer in the name of protectionism. I think it's important that even the government releases areas which can be commercialized, so that the Kenyans can get more efficient services.
And you're talking about a public institution, and it is widely acknowledged that there's a lot of bureaucracy in the public space, whereby policies take time before they are implemented, and turnaround time is always a thing. And you're competing against courier services, that are private. Decision-making process can take the shortest time possible. So how do you play catch-up?
No, we don't play catch-up. They must play catch-up, because we have an advantage.
That is in an ideal situation?
No, even in the present situation, we still have the greatest advantage because of our attachments. We've got about 650 outlets, which can work out mini warehouses, which can work as last mile delivery points. So instead of actually looking at us being competitors, we should actually look as the people who serve even the smaller couriers. Because, for instance, if you've got a phone that is going to be taken to Elwak, for instance, and you take it to one of the smaller couriers, they won't take it. It won't make any business sense for them to take it to Elwak. To be very expensive. So what do? They all bring it to the post office, because post office will go everywhere in Kenya. It is our obligation, through the universal service obligation. We have to take that phone to whatever. So we aggregate it.
So to make any business.
So we still have an advantage, really, of now consolidating all that is being brought by the other smaller couriers, and making them survive as we survive. So they're actually not, in essence, they're adversaries, actually. So we need to look at it as more of creating synergies than actually killing. That's the way you should look at it. Yeah.
You're watching Inside the Government, and this week we're talking to Postmaster General Dan Kagwe on the future of the Postal Corporation of Kenya, and the future of letter writing. He's very optimistic. Our conversation continues. Dan, you have been going through serious financial challenges because of our declining business. How do you plan to deal with this?
I would call it declining business because actually we have a lot of opportunities that you need to exploit. But there are things that happen, say for instance the pandemic that we are going through. You do realize our business, for instance, mails and courier, is to connect to the more than 1,000 destinations that we have. But now, when COVID came, because we send our mail as an accompanied luggage, so that, and we send them through normal flights, not cargo. So when airports were closed and planes were not flying, it affected our business almost to a standstill. So that affected us. But now, I mean, skies have opened, planes are starting flying. E-commerce is growing because now people don't want to move, so there's more online shopping. So yes, the future is not as glim as we look at it. Mm-hmm. We actually, to me, there's the future is more on innovative ways of doing business. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the opportunities are actually more than we had before the COVID, if you ask me.
You're talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, and it has been a challenge, not just to the Postal Corporation of Kenya, but to many institutions. But we saw a situation whereby you could hardly, manage to pay for your operations, seeking state bailout of almost $1 billion shillings. We are not guaranteed that COVID-19 is the end of pandemics. Sure. How prepared are you in the case of a second pandemic?
That's a good question, because nobody knows when it's going to happen again. However, I think it's important to know, and I keep insisting on this one, the government owns the post office. Like other institutions, I mean, if pandemic happens, how are the teachers going to be paid? If pandemic happens, how is universities going to be run? If it happens, how is the railway going to happen? So the post office is also wholly 100% owned by the government. So there should be a way where it is the government is actually insurance of its own investment. So there got to be, we need to stop siloing. Let's stop silos. That the government looks at this institution different from this institution. I think it's important that it's consolidated as a government. Where is the government interest? So to me, the pandemic, any pandemic can affect any wing of government, but the role of us is to see that the institutions survive. That is our role.
For the last 22 years, you have enjoyed a monopoly in postal services, sending letters and so much. This monopoly is coming to an end by the year 2023. When you remember that almost 70+% of your revenue is generated through postal services, how does this make you feel?
It's not coming to an end. The 350 grams is where we have monopoly by law. Mm-hmm. But the 350 grams, for the last time I had, nobody has ever been arrested because of taking a letter to the matatus. So it is theoretically there that the post office has 350 grams and below as controlled, you may say. But it is impossible to police it. Mm-hmm. So it is theoretical that yes, the post office owns 350 grams. But if you go to all the matatus right now, you'll find all those letters and parcels there. So frankly speaking, I don't think it will change anything.
And when you remember that, we have been talking about the national addressing system for the last more than 10 years, actually. Yeah. And we are not guaranteed that we're going to have this system in place in the next 1 or 2 years. How does this affect your business?
I will surprise you. We've gone very, very far into.
But the bill is in Parliament.
Yeah, so I think
taken through the normal debating process.
Yeah, so
maybe amendments have to be made.
The secretariat is in place. It was gazetted last Friday. Resources are available. Yeah. Mapping has started. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's a question of soon. I'm sure soon you'll get the news of the pilot project starting, so that we stop this mayhem of anybody naming anything, anybody waking up, and all this disorganization that we have is actually because of lack of a national addressing system. Mm-hmm. If we are going to grow in e-commerce to the level where it is very convenient for everybody, and to make it faster, then we must, as a country, implement the national payment, the national addressing system. And I'm sure it's got all the support from everybody, all the way from His Excellency the President. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's would I say, a debate or a discourse that is ongoing on whether the Universal Service Fund, about £1 billion shillings should be allocated to Postal Corporation of Kenya from the fund. And I know Parliament is on this issue. I know the Senate is also on this issue. If there is no breakthrough in this, how exposed will be the Postal Corporation of Kenya?
The history of Universal Service Funds was actually set by the UN so that it covers the postal service's universal obligation.
Mm-hmm. Among other entities.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There was no among others. There's no among others. That was the rule. The universal service obligation.
But it also talks about telecommunication.
No. That is later. I'm talking about the origin.
Talking about the original.
Yeah. It came to change because people started getting greedy. All right? Because I'm giving a bigger pie to you, then I control what I want you to do with my money. But it should be the reverse. It should be CSA sitting and saying, where is the obligation that is not commercial? That is service. That's where you put your money. So to me, it has changed. It's initial human, because it's supposed to be a human service where people must be served. That is why it's an obligation.
And you're talking about government turning some of these postal addresses into Huduma centers. You know that you have been having challenges with the payment, rent payment for the existing Huduma centers. Would that be a challenge as well?
Huduma service is a government service. The postal service is a government service. All right? Frankly speaking, it's money in this pocket and this pocket, but it's all your money and it's all your problems. So it's a question of sitting down and asking ourselves, what is the dream of the two combined as one service to the Kenyans? Because eventually, what are we doing? Eventually, we are serving Kenyans. That's what we want. So if we stop thinking from silos and look at the bigger picture of serving Kenyans, then we make very, very, very rational decisions to make people be served better. That's my point. And sometimes I talk like a Kenyan, not just because I'm in the post office. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense, common sense, to actually roll out, if you ask me, every post office to be a government service. So all these Huduma centers and all that, if we stop thinking from smallness and say, what does the Kenyans need? The Kenyans need service, period. They don't care whether you call it Huduma, whether you call it post office, whether you call it what.
What they are concerned about is service.
They want service by the end of the day.
Done. As we end this interview, paint for us Postal Corporation of Kenya in the next 10 years.
It will be the place where people will be seeking to be employed. Young people of this country will be looking to be employed in the post office in the next 10 years. It will be the hot place.
Despite the fact that now you're having challenges paying salaries to your workers.
I guess there's always the dark part comes just before dawn.
Let's hope the future is bright.
It is.
When was the last time you sent a letter?
I do. Always. My box is here. We can open it actually.
And see whether
Yeah.
we shall do that.
All right.
Dan, thank you so very much indeed for finding time to be with us. We've been talking to Postmaster General Dan Kagwe on the future of the Postal Corporation of Kenya and how he is rewriting, reimagining, and of course, looking ahead into the future of Postal Corporation of Kenya. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time. You have been watching Inside the Government. Every Thursday is always our time. Let's do this again next Thursday. Bye for now.
US President Joe Biden meets with the UK Prime Minister ahead of the G7 summit. The Africa CDC urges countries to enhance prevention measures amid a third wave of COVID-19. And the Central African Republic Prime Minister resigns. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. And with me is Uche Okoronkwo with a preview of your business news.
Thank you, Lindy. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. Zimbabwe's finance minister projects an optimistic 7.8% growth rate this year. And Nigeria requires social media companies operating in the country to register a local entity. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Lindy.
Thanks, Uche. Let's start the hour in the United Kingdom, where US President Joe Biden has met the British Prime Minister in Cornwall. It is the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders. A meeting comes on the eve of the G7 meeting. Their formal meeting is likely to dwell on the need to support the Northern Ireland Protocol. Northern Ireland is currently caught up in a dispute between the UK and the EU over Brexit. Biden has maintained that the standoff should not affect the ongoing peace process in the region. Well, Navid Jabakal now takes us through the preparations for the G7 summit in Cornwall.
Looking out over the Cornish coast, this is picturesque postcard Britain. But look a little closer and there are warships at sea and police patrolling the streets. For local business owners like Chris and Francine, hosting the G7 summit here in St Ives has come at a cost.
It's all dropped off this week. We're sort of at 50% at the moment because I think it's deterring people. As you say, you've seen the signs that say avoid the area everywhere, which that doesn't do much for your guests wanting to come in, does it? Or any last-minute bookings. They're scared to come down, to be honest, I think.
Despite the short-term disruption to life, the local economy here could see a wider boost from the G7 spotlight, worth up to $70 million.
Cornwall is very well known in the UK. It's known in a couple of markets like Germany, but the rest of the world probably doesn't even know Cornwall exists. And they probably think the English coast is rather boring and not very pretty. So for us, it's absolutely publicity we can't buy.
Arriving with the usual high security, President Biden's the main guest here this week on his maiden foreign trip since entering the White House.
This is the first time the leaders will meet in person since the start of the pandemic, and what a different world we're in. COVID-19 will be top of the agenda, but the group faces other challenges, from climate change, which is being felt in communities like this worldwide, to trade policies as they look to kickstart global growth.